I never expected to see her again. Not after the way she left. Not after the way she looked at me that night, like I was nothing more than a failed investment, an idea she once believed in but had outgrown. I told myself I didn't care, that I had moved on. But then, 5 years later, she walked into my office. Lauren. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy smoothing down her blouse, flashing a polite, professional smile at my assistant, Maya. Too busy clutching her resume like it was a lifeline. But the second her eyes met mine, I saw it. Recognition. Shock. And then humiliation. She stiffened, just slightly, but I caught it. The way her fingers tightened around the folder in her hands. The way her shoulders squared, like she was bracing for impact. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my expression neutral. Lauren Marshall. I let the name hang between us, watching the way her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Your resume is impressive. She nodded, her voice carefully controlled. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter. Not Ryan. Not Reed, like she used to call me when she was curled up next to me on my shitty apartment couch, stealing bites of my takeout. I gestured to the seat across from me. Take a seat. She hesitated, just for a second. Then she sat, carefully crossing her legs, placing her hands on her lap. She looked composed, polished, like she had practiced for this moment. I flipped through her resume, even though I had already read it. I already knew I wasn't hiring her. But some twisted part of me wanted to hear what she had to say. So, I said, tapping my fingers against the paper. Why Nexus Solutions? She straightened, giving me the kind of rehearsed, corporate-approved smile I had seen 1,000 times before. Your company has been making waves in the industry. I've followed its growth for years. I almost laughed. Lauren had no idea Nexus was mine until she walked in here. Is that so? I said instead, tilting my head. She nodded. I admire what you've built. Built. Funny word choice, considering 5 years ago, she told me she couldn't wait around for me to build something that might never happen. I exhaled slowly, flipping to the next page. What happened at Weston Analytics? Her smile faltered, just slightly. They downsized. I raised an eyebrow. Downsized? Or let you go? Her posture stayed straight, but I saw the way her fingers curled into her lap. There were a lot of layoffs. That wasn't an answer. And I already knew the truth. Weston didn't just downsize her position. They let her go because she wasn't a team player. Because she burned bridges. Because Lauren always looked out for herself first. I closed the folder and leaned forward. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your career so far? She hesitated. Just for a second. Then, carefully, she said, that success isn't just about personal ambition. It's about collaboration. Adaptability. A good answer. A safe answer. I just didn't believe a damn word of it. I let the silence stretch, watching her, letting her sit in it. Then, finally, I leaned back, exhaling through my nose. I appreciate you coming in. There it was. The shift in her expression. The slight tremor in her jaw. She knew what was coming. But I don't think you're the right fit for Nexus. She took a slow breath, nodding. But I saw the tension in her shoulders. The way she forced herself to stay still. Is there any feedback you could give me? She asked. Anything I could work on? I studied her. Then, slowly, I smiled. We value loyalty here, I said. People who believe in the company's potential, even when it's just getting started. She didn't react at first. Then, quietly, she exhaled through her nose. I see. I stood, signaling that the meeting was over. Thanks for your time, Lauren. Best of luck. She hesitated. Then she stood, smoothing down her skirt. Thank you, Mr. Carter. And then, just like that, she was gone. I sat back down, staring at the closed door. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt like I won. But instead, all I felt was a strange, nagging sense of unfinished business. I thought that was it. Lauren would leave, maybe sit in her car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, replaying the conversation in her head. Maybe she'd be angry. Maybe she'd feel regret. Maybe she'd just feel numb. But whatever it was, it wouldn't be my problem. Except a week later, she texted me. A number I didn't have saved, but I didn't need to. Lauren, I didn't take the job you offered. I stared at the screen for a second, debating whether I should even acknowledge it. Then, another text. Lauren, because I don't want another easy way out. I want to prove I'm better than the person you remember. I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head. Classic Lauren. Always needing to frame things a certain way. I didn't respond. But 2 days later, I made a call. Not to offer her a job. Not exactly. Just an opportunity. A short-term contract. No benefits, no long-term security. Just a chance. She accepted within the hour. That's how Lauren Marshall ended up back at Nexus Solutions. She wasn't part of the team. Not really. She didn't have an office. No nameplate on a door. Just a workspace in the far corner, near the analysts, where she quietly did her job. She didn't push for attention. Didn't try to win me over. She just worked. And slowly, people started to notice. Lauren Sharp, Darren, my CFO, mentioned offhandedly one day in a meeting. She caught a reporting error before it hit compliance. Maya, my assistant, brought her up too. She stays late. Comes in early. Never complains. I wasn't sure what I expected when I let her back in. Maybe some half-assed attempt to prove a point. Some desperate play for validation. But that wasn't what I got. Instead, I got someone different. And I didn't know what to make of it. One night, long after most people had left, I stepped out of my office to grab a coffee. And there she was. Sitting alone in the break room, laptop open, staring at the screen like she wasn't even seeing it anymore. A half-empty cup of coffee sat beside her, untouched. I could have walked away. But I didn't. Burning the midnight oil? I asked. She startled slightly, looking up. Then she exhaled a small laugh. You too. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. What are you working on? She hesitated, then shut her laptop. Nothing important. A lie. But I let it slide. Instead, I grabbed a water from the fridge, twisting off the cap. You always used to go to bed early. Her lips twitched. And you always used to say sleep was for the weak. I smirked. Still true. For a second, we just stood there. Then, softly, she said, I saw my ex today. I didn't move. Just waited. It wasn't planned, she continued, running a finger along the rim of her cup. I was coming back from lunch, and he was walking out of some law firm across the street. He saw me, and for a second, I thought maybe he'd just keep going. But he didn't. I didn't say anything. Lauren let out a slow breath. He asked how I was. If I was still mad at him. My jaw tightened. Mad? She gave a dry, humorless laugh. Yeah, like somehow he was the one who walked away from me. I stared at her. I had spent so long resenting her for leaving me, for choosing someone else. But I never considered that maybe she regretted it too. What did you say? I asked. She looked up, meeting my gaze. I told him I wasn't mad. She paused. I told him I was glad. Something shifted in my chest. Lauren tilted her head slightly. You ever think about how different things would be if I never left? I exhaled through my nose. I knew what she was asking, and I knew I couldn't give her the answer she wanted. Because the truth was, if she hadn't left, I wouldn't be who I was now. And neither would she. So I just shook my head. No, I said simply. I don't. She studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. And for the first time since she walked back into my life, I realized something. We weren't rewriting the past. We were finally letting it go. Lauren stayed. Not just physically, showing up at Nexus every morning, working late into the night, but in a way I didn't expect. She stopped being a ghost from my past and started becoming something else. I still wasn't sure what. But I knew one thing. She wasn't the same woman who walked out of my life 5 years ago. And that was becoming harder to ignore. One afternoon, I was in a meeting with my executive team when Darren, my CFO, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. So he said casually, Lauren. I barely looked up from my notes. What about her? She caught an issue in the quarterly reports before compliance did, he said. Saved us from a potential audit nightmare. I flipped my pen between my fingers, forcing my expression to stay neutral. Good. She's temporary, right? Darren asked. That was the agreement. He nodded, glancing at the others. Might be time to reconsider that. I didn't respond. Not because I disagreed, but because I wasn't sure how I felt about it. That night, I stayed late. The office was quiet, the soft hum of the city outside filling the silence. I was finishing up emails when I heard the faint click of a keyboard. I wasn't alone. I stepped out of my office and found her exactly where I expected, at her desk in the far corner, focused on whatever was on her screen. A half-empty bottle of water sat beside her, untouched. She didn't notice me at first. And for a second, I just watched. She had her hair pulled back, looser than she used to wear it. She was biting her lip slightly, lost in thought. There was something almost familiar about it. Something that reminded me of the late nights we used to spend side by side, her editing research papers, me working on code, both of us running on bad coffee and blind ambition. I cleared my throat. She looked up, startled. Then her expression smoothed. Still here? I shrugged. Should be asking you the same thing. She leaned back in her chair, stretching. I wanted to finish a few things. I studied her for a moment. Come by my office tomorrow at 10. A flicker of something crossed her face, curiosity, maybe. But she just nodded. Okay. The next morning, she was on time. She knocked once, then stepped inside, closing the door behind her. She didn't sit until I gestured for her to. She didn't look nervous. Not like she had in the first meeting. Just focused. I leaned back in my chair. How'd you catch the issue in the reports? She raised an eyebrow. The compliance thing? I nodded. She shrugged. I was reviewing the financials and saw an inconsistency. Didn't sit right, so I kept digging. Simple. Direct. No arrogance. No fishing for praise. I exhaled through my nose. The executive team wants to keep you. Her expression flickered, surprise, maybe. Oh, that's it. She hesitated, then smiled slightly. I guess I was expecting more of a fight. I tilted my head. You think I don't know talent when I see it? No, she said. I think you don't like me. She wasn't wrong. I hadn't liked her. Hadn't trusted her. Hadn't wanted her anywhere near what I built. But the person sitting in front of me now? She wasn't that Lauren. I drummed my fingers against the desk. Maybe I don't have to like you to respect your work. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. I leaned forward, resting my forearms on my desk. Full-time role. Better salary, benefits, more responsibility. She didn't react right away. Then, finally, she asked, what's the catch? I smirked. I'm your boss now. She smiled back, small but real. I think I can live with that. I extended my hand. Welcome to Nexus, Lauren. She hesitated, then took it. And just like that, the past shifted. Not erased. Not forgotten. Just different. Lauren was officially part of Nexus now. A full-time employee. A permanent fixture. If you had told me 5 years ago that one day she'd be working for me, that I'd be the one holding all the cards, I would have laughed. But now that it was real, it didn't feel like some kind of victory. It just felt inevitable. At first, not much changed. She kept doing what she'd been doing, working late, catching details that others missed, proving over and over that she deserved to be here. And despite everything, I started trusting her work. Trusting her? That was another story. Still, I found myself paying more attention, noticing the little things. Like the way she always started her day with a black coffee but let it go cold before she ever drank it. Or the way she scribbled notes in the margins of reports, tiny, nearly illegible handwriting that reminded me of the way she used to write grocery lists on the back of receipts. Or the way she avoided small talk about her personal life. Like she didn't want anyone to ask. Like she didn't want anyone to know. It wasn't until a company dinner a few months later that things really shifted. We had just closed a major deal, and the entire executive team was out celebrating at an upscale restaurant downtown. Nexus had rented out a private room, the kind with dim lighting and expensive bottles of wine on every table. Lauren wasn't supposed to be there technically, she wasn't at that level yet. But Darren had insisted. She worked just as hard on this as the rest of us. I hadn't argued. Maybe because I knew he was right. She arrived late, slipping into the room quietly, scanning for an empty seat. When her eyes met mine across the table, there was something in them I couldn't quite place. Something unreadable. She ended up next to Maya, who immediately started talking to her, but Lauren only half listened, nodding at the right times, eyes flicking toward the wine list. She looked uncomfortable. Not in an obvious way, she was too poised for that. But I noticed it. The slight tension in her shoulders. The way she kept adjusting her napkin in her lap. I was about to look away when I saw it. A familiar face. Someone at the bar outside the private room. Him. Lauren's ex. The guy she left me for. The guy she told me she was glad she left. He hadn't seen her yet. He was laughing with a group of guys, oblivious, but I could see the way Lauren's posture shifted the second she noticed him. Her fingers curled slightly against the tablecloth. Not fear. Not even anger. Just something close to dread. She turned her face slightly, as if debating whether she should get up and leave. I didn't know why it made me feel so tense. I didn't owe her anything. But before I could think it through, I stood, crossed the room, and dropped into the empty seat next to her. Lauren glanced at me, startled. What are you? Relax, I said, reaching for my glass of whiskey. Just making conversation. She narrowed her eyes slightly. Since when do you just make conversation? I smirked. Since I noticed you debating whether to crawl under the table to avoid being seen. Her jaw tightened. She didn't deny it. I exhaled through my nose, swirling the whiskey in my glass. You want me to make him leave? She blinked. What? I can make a call, I said, deadpan. Have him dragged out of here. Maybe dumped in an alley somewhere. She let out a short, startled laugh. Jesus, Ryan. I shrugged. Say the word. She stared at me for a second, then shook her head. No. A pause. Then, softer, I just don't want to deal with him. I nodded once. Then you won't. For a second, she didn't say anything. Then she exhaled, tilting her wine glass toward me slightly. You're not as much of an asshole as you pretend to be, you know? I smirked, clinking my glass against hers. Don't tell anyone. She smiled. And for the first time since she came back into my life, it felt easy. Like maybe we weren't just two people with a messy history. Like maybe, just maybe, we were something else now. The thing about history is that it never fully disappears. You can bury it under time, under new memories, under work and distractions. But then, out of nowhere, it resurfaces. A familiar face. A conversation you weren't expecting. A moment that shifts something inside you before you even have time to process it. That dinner changed things. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way anyone else would have noticed. But I noticed. Lauren and I didn't talk about what happened. We didn't acknowledge the fact that I sat beside her that night, that I saw her face when she spotted her ex, that for some reason I gave a damn. Instead, we did what we had always done best. We worked. But something between us felt different. Not softer. Not exactly. Just less like unfinished business and more like something new. A few weeks after the dinner, Nexus closed another deal. A huge one. One that had taken months to land. The entire office was buzzing, people celebrating, toasting with cheap champagne in plastic cups, talking about bonuses and promotions. Lauren was standing near her desk, talking with Maya and a few of the other analysts. She looked different tonight. More relaxed. More here than I'd seen her in a long time. I should have left it at that. Should have grabbed my coat and gone home. But instead, I walked over. She looked up, surprised. Leaving already? I shrugged. Unlike some people, I don't need to celebrate every win. Maya snorted. God forbid Ryan Carter enjoys something. I shot her a look. She grinned. Lauren smirked, tilting her head. Well, for what it's worth, this deal wouldn't have happened without you. I let out a soft laugh. Flattery? Really? She rolled her eyes. Forget it. I should have walked away then. Should have let the night end. But instead, I nodded toward the elevators. Come on. She frowned. What? Let's get out of here. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then she grabbed her coat. The rooftop bar was nearly empty, the city stretched out below us. Lauren wrapped her hands around her drink, looking out at the skyline. You still come here? I exhaled, leaning against the railing. Not really. She nodded, but didn't say anything. For a while, we just stood there. Then, softly, she said, You know, I never actually thought you'd let me stay at Nexus. I turned to her. You earned it. A pause. Then, quieter, I didn't deserve it. I studied her, waiting. She let out a slow breath. I was awful to you, Ryan. I didn't respond. Because yeah, she was. She swallowed, looking down. I think, for a long time, I thought that if I worked hard enough, I could make up for it. That if I proved myself, maybe you'd. She trailed off, shaking her head. Never mind. I tilted my head. Maybe I'd what? She hesitated, fingers tightening around her glass. Maybe you'd see me as something other than the girl who left. I exhaled slowly, turning back toward the skyline. You were right, you know, I said. Back then. She blinked. About what? I glanced at her. I wasn't enough for you. Her face shifted. Ryan. No, I said simply. Not then. You wanted stability. Security. I couldn't give you that. I exhaled. I get it now. She was quiet for a long time. Then, softly, she said, I should have believed in you. I didn't say anything. Because it wasn't about that anymore. We weren't those people anymore. I turned to face her fully. Do you regret it? She swallowed. Then she nodded. Yeah, she whispered. I do. The weight of that hung between us. And maybe, a few years ago, I would have needed to hear it. Maybe I would have needed the validation. The proof that I won. But standing here now, with the city lights flickering below us, I realized something. I didn't need it. Not anymore. I smirked, nudging her drink with mine. Too bad. She let out a soft laugh. Yeah. And just like that, it wasn't unfinished business anymore. It was just the past. And we were finally free of it.